okay? They've all sought help and they're all still here today, with the exception of those two historical figures, they're all still here. Some of them use drugs or alcohol to try to fix their depression, some of them try to hurt themselves, but the fact of the matter is that they all found positive ways to treat their depression, and they're all still here. The reason I show you guys those 10 pictures is to say if somebody in the public eye can ask for help, then so can we. And that is the message of the day, is to ask for help. If there's only one thing that you remember from the whole talk this morning, is this slide right here, to ask for help. I'm here today not as a counselor or as a doctor. I'm here today as what they call a suicide loss survivor. A suicide loss survivor is someone who has lost someone close to them by suicide. In my family, I've actually lost 4 people to suicide. The first 3 that I lost were my cousins. Now, these were cousins that lived in another state. I only met them a few times. And when we lost them, I actually kind of stayed in denial because I didn't really know them. But when you see a pattern in your family of any illness, whether it's heart disease, diabetes, alcoholism, depression, you should be studying that illness and finding out more about it because it could be genetic. But we didn't do that in my family, and that was a big mistake because on January 4th of 2010, then I lost somebody really close to me by suicide, and that was my brother. And even though it's been 6 years, it's still hard to talk about it. And so right now I'm going to ask for help, and I'm going to ask your teacher right now to read a short story to you about my brother.
I lost my brother Glenn to suicide. Glenn loved to ski. Here he is in his 20s after being dropped by a helicopter into untouched powder in Colorado. I was still at Buck Hill, and he was on his next big adventure. He was also a great fly fisherman. He lived life to the fullest, and that always made me glad. Glenn was a risk taker and impulsive, but he was also a very sensitive person. He moved to Oregon and rarely came home to visit. When he did, he had a smile on his face and didn't share the struggles in his life. When he and his wife divorced, that was a turning point. Then he lost his business in the Great Recession. He equated self-worth with self-net. This is not the truth. The world may tell you this, that how much money you make is what you are worth. How much money you make has nothing to do with your value. We don't know all the pieces. Depression is complex. There were things going on inside his mind that he didn't share with anyone. The brain can get sick, just like any other organ in the body can get sick. If your heart was sick, you would do something about it. The same is true for your brain. In his last 2 days, the people in his town of Hood River, Oregon, said his head was down and he was giving back items that he had borrowed. He was showing some warning signs, as most people do when they die by suicide, but not enough for anyone to connect the dots. When he took his life, his pain spread all over the family, including his 4 children. To know that he was in that much pain, even to leave his young children. Our hearts broke in a way none of us had ever experienced.
Thank you. So Glenn never told anyone. He never told my parents, he never told me, he never told his best friend, he didn't tell my siblings. I think part of that was that my generation was taught that depression was something that you brought on yourself and that you better figure out. Because we weren't educated back then. We hadn't studied the brain, and that lie was taught to us. And I think that kept him in isolation. One of the key reason I come into your schools is because I believe that if he had been sitting in a health class and he had learned about depression, maybe he would have asked for help. Maybe his whole life would have been better. So I'm not paid to come in and talk to you guys. I work as a volunteer with the American Foundation Suicide Prevention, but I feel so strongly that if you guys know about it at the age you are right now, that it can really make a difference. And so what is depression? Depression is a medical illness that is caused by a chemical imbalance in the brain. These chemical imbalances are visible to researchers in images taken of the brain. And these changes can begin in adolescence or even childhood, times when the brain is undergoing dramatic developmental changes. So right now for you guys, you're going through so many transitions coming up in your life. You know, leaving high school, starting a job, going to college. And this is when the mental illnesses primarily show up, is during this time. And so this is key that you're learning about it right now. If you were to go online and Google Mayo Clinic depression MRI, this is the image that you would see. You would see 2 brains. The one on the left is the one that's depressed. It's darker, it's not focusing, it's not learning new things. The one on the right is the brain that's not depressed. It's active, it's lit up, moving forward. So it's an actual change in your brain. And I oftentimes say, if your parents are having a hard time understanding it, this is a great thing to go to the computer and show them that it's a physical change in your brain. Your chemistry has changed in your body so that they can really see that something has changed in the body. Because it's a chemical imbalance, it's a lot like diabetes, where they can draw your blood and they can tell if you have it. And so they are working very hard at Northwestern University on a blood test so that we're not going to have to guess anymore, that they're going to be able to draw the blood and to be able to tell if you have depression. And that's coming. They're working so hard on it. What are some facts about depression? Something bad or stressful doesn't have to happen for depression to occur. That's true. If it's very genetic in your family, like it is in mine, you actually don't have to have a lot of things that happen. And absolutely, anyone can have depression. It does not need to be genetic for a person to experience depression. Anyone can experience depression. Depression can arise over a period of time. 25% of Americans in a given year will experience mental illness, and depression is the most common. 20% of youth experience some level of depression. So if there's 30 of you in the room, 6 of you right now might be experiencing some level of depression. Depression affects people of all ages, cultures, ethnic, religious, and economic backgrounds. What are some signs and symptoms? The first one listed is listed first for a reason, because it's the first thing that really starts to happen. Lots of interest in things that used to be fun. That's the first thing that starts to happen. Feeling down, hopeless, sad, empty, crying easily, difficult to concentrate, and those same thoughts running over and over in your mind. Feeling helpless, worthless, or guilty. Feeling angry, irritable, moody, fighting, or arguing. So when I started studying depression, that was the one that surprised me the most. I didn't know that a lot of people express their depression through anger, and that's especially common in men and in young men. Sleeping more or less than usual, eating more or less than usual, recurring headaches, backaches, or stomach aches. Loss of energy, avoiding your friends, starting to isolate, using drugs or alcohol to try to escape or hide your feelings, acting impulsively or recklessly, feeling trapped, thinking about suicide, talking about suicide, or planning suicide. And on that last one, I say watch for extreme calm. If you have a friend right now that you know has been depressed for quite some time, and all of a sudden they're really calm, it could be that they're actually planning it. So that's something to watch out for. So if you have 5 or more of those symptoms for more than 2 weeks, then that's your red flag, and that's why that's in red. That's when you should go find out if something more is going on. And I don't mean the normal ups and downs of these things throughout the week. I mean for most of the day, for all of the day, for 2 weeks, without a let-up. That's when you need to find out, maybe this isn't just being sad, maybe this is depression. I need to find out more about that. When my brother died, I wasn't doing okay. Depression is different than the other kinds of deaths. You have so many what ifs. You say, what if I'd asked this? What if I'd seen this? Why didn't he trust us? And I had all those thoughts going over and over and over in my mind, and I couldn't get rid of them. And then I couldn't sleep. Then I stopped eating. Then I was crying all the time, and I knew something was going on with me then, that I was starting to go on my own depression. So I talked to 2 people. I told 2 people about it. I told my pastor and I told my sister. And I told them what was going on. And they both came alongside me and listened. But the best thing they did for me was that they both knew enough about depression to say, you know what? We don't know how to treat this. Go to your family practice doctor and tell him what's going on and see what to do about this. And that's the advice that I give to you guys too. You might have a friend who's depressed, who's been leaning on you a lot. And that's great. Stay alongside them, but don't try to figure it out with them. Point them in the direction of a professional. That's the most caring thing that you can do. Because like with mine, I caught it early. That's true of any illness. The sooner you catch it, the better you can turn it around. And that's what you want to do for your friend. You want to get them to somebody who actually can help treat them and get that illness taken care of and treated. And so that's the best thing that they told me. And so I went to see my doctor, and the first thing he did was he gave me the PHQ. And it's the Personal Health Questionnaire. And this is really common now in doctors' offices. How many of you guys have filled one of these out? Yeah, most of you. And that's great. So 10 questions, you rank them 0 to 3, and they can tell if you are dealing with a depression. The most important thing with it is that you have to be honest with it. If you're not, you might as well just throw it in the trash. Just don't even fill it out. But if you're honest with it, this is the best way right now that we have to diagnose depression. So when I did that, he diagnosed me with moderate depression. And he told me to do 2 key things. He said, the first thing I want you to do is get out and exercise. And I said, that's like the last thing you feel like doing when you have depression. And he said, even if it's just out walking your dog, just get back outside and do something to help change your body chemistry. That's the most important thing that's going to change your chemistry. And then he said, I want you to go find a counselor that you can tell all these thoughts to. Because he said, I'm not actually trained in helping you process those thoughts. And I said, well, I've never done this counseling thing. And he said, I want you to try. So I went on the internet, I picked a counselor, I went and I told her everything. And guess what? It didn't work. And I was like, well, that didn't work. So I went and I told a friend what I'd done, and she said to me, why don't you try someone else? Why don't you try that again? And I said, okay, I would try it again. So I got back on the internet, and I looked for someone, and I went and I told her everything. And this time, she helped me process all those thoughts. She helped me understand that we weren't responsible for his death, and that everybody in my family had done their best with the information that we had. And she helped me stop doing this with my thoughts and help me to move forward. Okay? So I'm not going to say that the first counselor wasn't good. She just wasn't a good fit for me. And I was so glad that I tried again. And so that's what I want to say to you guys, is to seek counseling, and if it's not working, seek it again. All right? Don't give up on that. The simple act of talking changes your brain chemistry. You guys kind of all know that. When you've had a bad day and you go tell somebody about it, you just feel better, right? Because you just told somebody about it. Well, that's what counseling's like, only really amplified. Okay, and they're actually trained. You think that like you're going to get embarrassed telling them all these things that you're thinking? They've heard it all before. They have heard it all before. And you can actually tell, I could tell from her body language that everything I said to her, she had heard before. And that was so comforting to me, like, she's heard this. She's known how to deal with this before. And the main thing with your counselor is to be honest and to trust them. Because if you don't tell them everything, I'm going to say it's not going to work. But if you tell them everything, then they can help you figure out how to process that differently. So that's the key. Trust them. I learned from my brother not to bottle things up. And that's what I want you guys to learn from him too. I don't want you to bottle up. Don't isolate. Tell someone what is going on. People experiencing depression do not choose it, but we can choose to get help and recover. Okay? You don't choose it, but it's treatable, and you can do something about it. You might have a clinical depression. This would be one that's diagnosed that you actually deal with depression on a daily basis. And so again, the main thing is not to bury it, but keep managing it. You might also go to counseling and find out, oh, actually, this screen I like to show you, because when I had depression, I felt like I was shrinking, becoming less of who I once was. And a mother once described that to me of her son, that she thought it was, he was just shrinking, becoming less of who he was. That's exactly how I felt. But when you go to counseling, you might find that they're going to diagnose more anxiety than depression. Okay? And that's an important diagnosis too, because if the anxiety goes too long, it could lead to depression. So it's important to know. And anxiety really is that what-if thinking versus what is actually happening. So it's good to plan in your life and to look ahead, but it's not good to live in the future and have all those what-ifs. You want to learn to live in the moment, and a counselor will help you with that. You might also go to a counselor and find out that you're a perfectionist. And, you know, excellence is a great thing, but perfectionism is really a form of self-abuse. We are not perfect, and we shouldn't try to be. And so the words that are really important for perfectionists are the words good enough, that you're good enough just the way you are right now, and what you did was good enough. So they'll really help you with that. But those are the words that you have in your head so that you're able to do things and not strive for something that's not really out there. Depression can be very complex. A single event is not the illness, but it can be a tipping point. So when my brother died, so many people asked me, what was it? What was it? Like there was one thing that caused this, and that's never the case. It's much more complex than that. In my family, we do have a predisposition. You'll have childhood experiences. You might have bullying incidents. You have other circumstances. Some things are in your control and some things are not. You need to ask for help all along the way so that they don't accumulate, so that you never come anywhere near a tipping point. Seeking help is empowering and courageous. It's what those 10 people did that we started the presentation with. Who was the very first person I showed you on the screen? It was Michael Phelps. He's got the word help embedded in his name. I am so glad that he spoke out at this last Olympics, that he was in a very deep depression. He was really at the end stages, but he knew to ask for help, okay? So depression can happen to some of the most interesting and famous people in the world. And it has no bounds on that. No one is immune. But the great thing that he did was to ask for help. And that's a good role model for us. So when I went to my doctor, we actually came up with this list of what we called the basics. These were the things I was to do every day to try to get healthy. And exercise is listed first because that's the thing that's going to have the most impact on your chemistry. And so I got back out there. It was good if I could do something more aerobic to really get the endorphins and things, the chemistry changing. And that is the most important thing. It's one of the hardest things. I'm glad someone right now is taking a picture of that screen, because I think that's one of the most important things I'm going to show you guys today, are the basics. Going to bed at the same time and those routines. Eating right is really important, especially when you have depression. Actually, junk food inflames the brain, and it makes depression worse. So it's really important that you try to really eat right during any time of a depression. Talking to your families and friends is important. Volunteering is a great thing to do, because when you volunteer, you take the focus off yourself and onto other people. It's really helpful and healing. Taking vitamin D is important. Here in Minnesota, we just don't get enough sunshine. They actually say to just take a little vitamin D once a day, no matter what time of year. But there are 30% of us that deal with seasonal affect disorder, or SAD. And this is where, maybe you guys know, if there's 30 of you in the room, 10 of you right now are probably dealing with some level of seasonal affect. Some of you realize when the sun isn't out or when it's a rainy day. And others of you kind of are oblivious to that. Well, if you notice those things, then a blue light's going to help you. And so many students ask me about it that I actually bring one in now to show them. And this is my blue light. You set it up by your computer at arm's length, and it shines on your face. Just like you wouldn't look straight at the sun, right? It just shines on your face for 20 minutes. It actually gives you energy. It simulates the good rays of the sun. There's a lot of hokey ones out there, and that gives it a bad name. But this one's called the Go Light, and actually the students ask me where to get it. I say go on to Walmart and order it and pick it up a week later. It actually gives you that, you know what the energy from the sun can do. It actually does that. And that's especially important in the winter months, but anytime the sun isn't shining. Journaling is an important thing to do. Journal about the things that aren't going well, but also journal about the things that you're thankful for. Listening to music that uplifts you is important to do, and getting a daily dose of laughter is important. So if you guys are sharing things on YouTube and all that, keep doing that, because you should laugh at least once a day. So if you're doing the basics, and if you're doing counseling, and you still don't feel like yourself, then you need to go back to the doctor and talk about medication. Now sometimes you go on medication right away, because you can't get out of bed, and you can't do the basics, you can't do those things. So you need to go on the med right away so that you can do those. But more common is that you do the basics, counseling, and then you add the meds if you need to. The meds, there's over 30 different ones now. If you try one and it doesn't work, you try another. Or you might try a combination. If somebody in your family has already blazed the trail, then use the med that they're using, okay? Because your chemistry is the most similar to the other people in your family. Or you might be the trailblazer, and then other people in your family will know this actual medication works for the people in our family. It's key that you don't mix it with drugs or alcohol. If you think about it, you've got your body chemistry, then you've got the chemistry coming in from the med, and then you've got the chemistry coming in from drugs or alcohol. And when those all mix together, it's not going to work. So you need to make sure that you're not using drugs or alcohol when you're taking the medication. There's no magic pill for anything in life, and this is no different. So don't expect that pill to just do everything. It's not going to. You need to add basics and the counseling with it. You'll stay on it until you and your doctor decide to go off, if you do. It might be 6 months. It might be something you stay on for the rest of your life. That's up to you and your doctor to figure out. You just have to know not to get stuck, to keep on trying with the med, okay? And most people, like I say, it's all individual. If you start feeling really good, don't go off of it. Talk to your doctor about weaning off of it. It's kind of like an antibiotic, you know, you take it for 10 days and you start feeling better about day 3 or 4, but they say you gotta take it all 10 days for you to have the full effect. This is kind of like that, in that you need to keep taking it and working with your doctor on it, and you never make those decisions by yourself. Don't try to solve this illness on your own, and don't get stuck. Now, sometimes I have a teen with me when I teach the class, and when Sarah's not here, she gives me a few slides to read to you, and this is the first one. It says, tell someone, write it on a piece of paper and leave it by your parents' pillow, or give a note to an adult you trust. She hid her depression for 3 years. She would describe to me that she would get out of bed and she would lay on the floor for over a half hour before she could stand back up. It had gotten that bad. And she hid it for 3 years. And then one day she finally put that note under her mom's pillow, and that was her turning point. That's when things started to change around, and she started to get the help that she needed. And so she wants you to find any way that you can tell someone, and if it's just writing a note and doing it that way, then that's the way you do it. She wants you to know that there are things in this world that you're meant to do, and when you have depression, you can't do them. There's a plan for all of us, and when you have depression, you can't go and do all those things. So she wants you to be healthy and be able to do the things you're meant to do. She wants you to know that you are worthy and that you are not and never will be a burden. So she was kind of towards the end stages of depression. She was in a very dark hole, and she actually thought that she was worthless. She actually thought the world would be better off without her. She thought she would be a burden if she told her parents, and those are all lies, and she wants you to know those are all lies. Okay? And she's doing great now. She's actually not a teen anymore. She's a little older, and she is doing terrific. And she wants you to know that you're not alone. So who's got your back? There's a lot of people in your life that care about you. You've got your people at the place of worship, your doctor, your parents, counselors, therapists, social workers, friends, psychologists, psychiatrists, teachers, siblings, coaches, boyfriends, and girlfriends. Okay? So you have a lot of people that care about you, but they can't read your mind, right? They can't read your mind. So what I want you to do right now is actually take your cell phones out. I have clearance from your teacher. I want you guys to go into your contact list, and I want you to scroll down through it, and I want you to pick 2 people that you could call and talk to about anything, anytime, okay? This is somebody you could call at 2 in the morning, and if you need to talk to somebody, you've already figured out who those people are, okay? So look through your contact list. If you don't have your cell phone right now, do it mentally in your head. Who are those 2 people? This is the time to figure that out. When you're sitting quietly in health class, who are they? So when you really need them, you've already figured out who they are. You've already figured out who they are, okay? Who can you talk to? Look through that list, because they're in there. They're in your phone. They're in there. What I want you to do, too, is to add one more into your phone. And I want you to name it TALK, T-A-L-K. I want you to name this contact TALK. Who this is a counselor trained 24/7 to help people process their thoughts. And people ask me, do you have to be suicidal to call them? Absolutely not. I've talked to them many times, and they said, absolutely if they're feeling suicidal, but if they have any kind of emotional distress and want to talk to somebody, that's what we're here for, okay? So 1-800-273-TALK. You might need it. It might be a friend who needs it. It might be 10 years from now, and a coworker needs it. And they're sitting there telling you stuff that you don't know what to do about. And you say, guess what? I have this number in my phone called TALK. Let's call them up. Let's tell them what's going on. And let's see what they're going to tell us what to do next. And these people have devoted their whole lives to just doing that all day long, to help people work through whatever it is they're going through. If you would rather chat with that person, you can go online and do that. Again, the name of the site has suicide prevention in it, but it's for all people with any types of concerns that they have. And if you would rather text, we have Text for Life. So that needs to be in your phone too, that you can text the word life to 61222. Okay, you can put the word life into your phone, and it's connected to 61222, and text that word life in there, and then you can just talk to them that way. If you'd rather do that, that's what they're there for. Facebook's gotten involved. If you're reading some posts about a friend and you're concerned about them, but you don't want to approach them directly, you can tell Facebook, I have a friend who's posted some things. I'm concerned about what they're saying. Can you reach out? And they have a help center with professionals, and they'll reach out to that person to try to help them. So I'm really glad that they're trying to get involved, because, you know, it's out there. There's postings out there that are kind of indicators that someone's in trouble, and there's a way to get to them. So if you have a friend, what can you do? Okay, we say that you can act. You can acknowledge, care, and tell. The first one is acknowledge. If they say that they're in pain, then you mirror that back to them and say, I'm hearing that you're telling me that you're in pain, okay? That you're in pain, I heard you. If you say to them something like, it's gonna be better tomorrow, or it's not so bad, that's actually not what you wanna say to them. That, first of all, tells them you didn't listen to what they just said. And second, it tells them that you don't have any understanding of the level of pain that they're in. So you really do wanna mirror back the words that they just told you, even if you can't connect with them. Care. Show that you care. Keep listening. Okay, stay alongside them. Stay with them. Keep listening to what they're saying. And then tell. If you think they've said anything that puts them at risk, then you need to go tell their parents, an adult, call the talk line, get online. If you're really concerned, call 911, absolutely. And the bottom line says go with them to get help. I always think about people with cancer and stuff, like they don't want to go into the clinic by themselves. No one walks into that cancer clinic alone. They always have somebody with them. So if they get news that's troubling, they've got somebody right there with them to help them walk alongside. And this is no different. So go with them. Say, you know what? We need to go talk to this person together. I'm going to go with you. Okay, let's go back to care for just a minute. If you care about somebody, you care enough to ask the really hard questions. And I work with the American Foundation Suicide Prevention. We used to have a list of questions that you were supposed to ask your friend. But now we say, ask them one question. Cut to the chase and ask the hard question. And if you care enough, you're going to ask this hard question. Are you thinking about suicide? Now, when I first heard that, I thought, that can't be right. Because if you're telling them, you know, this question, if you're asking them this question, you're putting the idea in their head. The fact of the matter is, if they're already thinking about it, you're not putting any idea in their head. It's already there. All the studies show they're actually going to be relieved. Relieved that you cared enough to ask the hard question, and relieved that you have some understanding of the pain that they're in, that you would ask that. That is the question you want to ask, and it's not going to hurt them. It's going to help them. If they do say yes, you say, I'm on your side, let's find out what's going on. So let them know you're with them, you're not going to leave them, and you're going to go with them to an adult or someone who can help them out. You're going to stay with them to do that. Almost all people who are thinking of taking their lives don't really want to die, they just want the pain to stop. And that's true. Their brain isn't functioning, and they don't know what to do next, okay? And they can get into an episode where they think that there's no way out. But there's your brain helping them know, no, there is a way out, and I'm going to help you go there. So you help them process and get through that. And they don't want to leave the earth. They're just in so much pain they don't know what to do. It is a myth that once a person decides to complete suicide, there's nothing anyone can do to stop them. The fact is, suicide is the most preventable kind of death, and almost any positive action may save a life. The key word here, though, is may. You are not responsible for your friend, but you can do even the smallest thing and make a difference. It's the most preventable kind of death. So anything you do could be really a changer for them. People with depression can be hard to reach, so reach out again and again if you have to. So that's part of the illness, that they push you away. They push you away. What you need to know then is that you can't take that personally. You have to know that's part of the illness and keep going after them and keep caring about them. And that's hard to do when they're pushing. But know that that's part of the illness. And so keep going after them and let them know that you care. One way that I reach out to people is I take my dog Coda. She goes into hospitals to just smile at people who might be struggling with depression. And who here has a pet? Yeah, almost all of you. So that's a good thing. You know, pets have this amazing ability to just make us feel good. And so try to keep a pet in your life or be tethered to somebody else's pet throughout your life. It's a very healthy thing to do. Someday we're going to walk in a doctor's office and we're going to see all these on the same chart. Asthma, diabetes, depression, and heart disease. They're all treatable, but they're all life-threatening if you don't do something about them. And it's your generation that's bringing this from darkness into the light. And what I mean by that is you guys are starting to talk about it. You guys are starting to get that small circle of people around you to help either you or a friend through it, all right? And back in my generation, that wasn't happening. Who here thinks they might know somebody who might have depression? Yeah, most of you are raising your hands, and that's a good thing, actually. If I asked that question, years ago in the health class, when my age, we wouldn't have raised our hands. First of all, we didn't know much about depression. Second, we just wouldn't have raised our hands. But you guys, you're bringing it out into the light, okay? And there's so much hope in that. There's so much hope. So I want to thank you guys for letting me share that with you right now. And what I want to do right now is to take you through a quick quiz of some of the things that we talked about. So let's take a look at these questions. Depression is best described as the sadness that comes after rejection or disappointment, an illness involving chemicals in the brain, a response to stress that occurs in people who don't have good coping skills, or a condition that can be prevented by working hard. Yeah, it's B. Yeah? Which of the following are likely symptoms of depression? Missing school, sleeping most of the day, withdrawing from friends, having an unusual amount of energy, working at breakneck speed and feeling like you can do anything, losing your temper, feeling anxious or stressed out and having stomach aches, or both A and C? It's D, right. And B actually is a description of bipolar disorder, where you have the real highs and the real lows. And that is also treatable by medication. How long do the symptoms need to last without a break before someone can be diagnosed with depression? 1 week, 2 weeks, 2 months, 6 months. Yeah, 2 weeks. Without a break though, 2 weeks. Just the time to check it out. Which one of the following statements is true? Changing your attitude usually makes depression go away. It's usually pretty easy to spot someone who is depressed. Sometimes depression doesn't have any obvious cause. Or people who do well in school and have lots of friends don't get depressed. Yeah, sometimes there's no obvious cause, and that's okay. Which of the following are proven treatments for depression in teens? Positive thinking, talk therapy, antidepressants, or both B and C? Yeah, both B and C. Positive thinking is good, but it's just a little piece of the talk therapy. Okay. All right. Well, I'm not sure if our DVD is going to work today with the technology. It is not. Okay. And that's all right. All right. Your teacher might be showing you a video called More Than Sad. It's got 4 phases of depression. It just shows you that depression is different in each individual. And I'll just let you know, the first gal is more the thing that we think of as depression, where she's not getting out of bed, she's crying all the time. The second person is more with anxiety and dealing with perfectionism. The third person is actually someone who tries to use drugs or alcohol to try to fix his depression. And the fourth gal is actually someone who has had clinical depression through her life, and she's trying to manage it. So many different phases of depression. But what I'd like to do with you guys right now then is actually I'm going to hand out with your teacher an index card. And I think we have time to get your questions. They'll be anonymous. Okay?
Yeah, we got 9 minutes.
We have 9 minutes. Okay. So we're going to hand these out. And I'm going to collect them whether you write on them or not. So just pass them down the line. And I want you guys to come up with a question for me, okay? Because I will answer to the best of my ability anything that you have. You know, I'm not a doctor or a therapist, so I can't answer everything, but I can certainly give it a try. So take a couple minutes here to write down something that you want to ask. And then again, I'll collect them all whether you write on them or not.